Hi, I don't know if anyone's joined yet. It's just before 4 o'clock, but I'm Sophie Matthew, and I'm here to do the brief introduction to mindfulness session. So welcome to anyone who's already here. And I'll just give a few more moments, definitely a couple more minutes to anyone else who's going to be tuning in. So now 4 o'clock. So again, I'll just leave a bit more time for any more people who are going to be joining in. But yes, if you're here already, welcome to Brief Introduction to Mindfulness with me, Sophie Matthew. I'm really delighted to be here. This is my first Facebook Live, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm going to be keeping my eye on the live chat and questions as I go through. So I'm hoping that there will be some interaction and I'll be definitely trying to answer any questions that you have as I go along. So I'm going to give just a few more minutes, as it's only literally just 5 o'clock, but maybe for anyone who is here, just a reminder, I don't know if you saw in the blurb about this session, but there was a suggestion that you might want to have a raisin, to bring a raisin with you for one of the exercises, the mindfulness exercises I'm going to be doing. So perhaps while we just wait a few more minutes for anyone else who's joining, if you don't have a raisin or anything little that you could put in your mouth, and there's one that you get fairly quickly without too much trouble, you could maybe just quickly go and do that if you'd like to. There's no obligation, it won't matter. You can always just imagine if you don't have one. But if you just while we're waiting in case anyone else is joining, you might want to, if you have something to hand, easily a little raisin or something very small for one of the exercises, then now would be the time. But as I said, really don't worry about it. If it's too difficult to find or you really can't be bothered to move, then don't worry. It won't matter. So I'm noticing this first time I've used Facebook Live. I'm seeing how the chat works. I'm getting some nice hellos from people. Thank you very much. Everyone's saying hello from Cumbria, South Wales, Derbyshire. Hello, everyone. I'm in Oxford at the moment. I normally live in London, but I'm here with my mum and my sister in a little bubble at the moment, which is slightly strange because my husband and my kids are in London. So maybe I'll actually, as people may be continuing to join, I will just say a little bit about myself before I get into the mindfulness part. So as you know, my name's Sophie. I have ankylosing spondylitis. And I've had it for over 30 years now. So I was diagnosed when I was in my early 20s, I think. But I've had symptoms since I was about 16. So the usual diagnostic delay that many of us with AS have had. And I did actually work for NASS for a while. So maybe I've seen some of you. It was a long time ago. I worked for NASS between 2012 and 2014. Which I really enjoyed. I was the campaigns manager, and I really enjoyed that. And I've really been appreciating, I have to say, what a great charity NASS is, not only for me as a member, but all the things that have been happening during this difficult time of Corona. So really pleased to be invited by NASS to take part in these sessions, which hopefully can support all of us in our homes who are dealing with pain and also everything else that everyone else is dealing with. So I hope this is going to be helpful. And in some ways, my ankylosing spondylitis is actually what led me to mindfulness. So as many of you might have done as well, I have had quite regular treatments at Bath over the years at the RNHRD. And it was one of the physios there who I absolutely loved. She's not there anymore, sadly, but Ingrid Hill. I loved Ingrid, and she used to talk about mindfulness quite a lot and over the years, and I kind of listened to her, and because I respected her so much and I thought she was so lovely, I thought, well, maybe I'll investigate this thing called mindfulness that Ingrid is talking about. And I went and bought a book and read it and thought, oh yeah, sounds really good. So that was actually the beginning of my journey to mindfulness, kind of roundabout through having had ankylosing spondylitis. And I did my first mindfulness. I did an 8-week course, which was actually a stress reduction course, about 10 years ago, which I found really, really helpful. I had young children then. I was very stressed. I was getting anxious, kind of panic attacks, and kind of, feeling quite overwhelmed at times with life. And I found that mindfulness really helped me feel calmer, feel more resilient, enjoy life more. Generally, yeah, actually really feel a bit happier. And the other thing that I noticed, which was that I wasn't expecting actually, was it really helped me deal with my ankylosing spondylitis, with my levels of pain and my disability. You probably can't see because I'm sitting down, but I have quite a severe kyphosis. And so increasing disability as I've kind of got older. And I have, as many of us do, I'm sure, listening, quite a lot of kind of chronic pain, which fluctuates, etc., that you all know very well. And I found mindfulness just so helpful with dealing with that. Not necessarily that it necessarily reduced the level of pain, although I think it has a little bit, but also just changed my relationship with it so that it didn't bother me so much. It didn't control me so much. I felt that I had more agency in how I dealt with it. And also I had resources in myself. I didn't need to go and look outside for anyone else. I had things that I could do myself to look after myself, which I found really, really, really helpful. So yeah, I'm waffling on a little bit about my journey with mindfulness, so I'll speed it up. But I did a training with this organisation called Breathworks, who were fantastic. Please do look them up. They do a mindfulness course, which is mindfulness for health, for people who live with chronic pain and health conditions. So I was inspired by my own journey to learn to teach that, and I've been teaching that for 5 to 6 years. Mainly, I have been doing health courses for other people who live with chronic pain and health. And I've been so inspired by how much it's helped them as well. It's really, truly transformative for many people. So these are the reasons why I'm actually really, really happy to hopefully pique your interest a little bit, give you a little taster of what mindfulness might be like now. And yeah, hopefully that's something that you'll enjoy. So I'm going to go on in a moment to this little exercise around mindfulness, and I'm just going to keep an eye as we go on the sort of chat, and at the end, after I've done it, see if there's any particular feedback or questions or anything. So just an outline of what I'm planning to do briefly is this little exercise called the raisin exercise, which is a little experience of mindfulness. Then I'm going to just give a little definition, the most common definition of what mindfulness is. It's such a buzzword these days. Everyone's talking about mindfulness, mindfulness Christmas cards and mindfulness colouring books, but what actually is it? And so I'll talk a little bit about that, and then a little bit about why I think it's really helpful, particularly now when we're all having very difficult times, potentially anyway, many of us are, with all the coronavirus. We're all living in times of uncertainty, a lot of change, maybe a lot of anxiety. And so this is a perfect time to have kind of mindfulness skills that are really helpful with those kinds of things. So I'll talk a little bit about why it's particularly helpful and how it's particularly helpful. And then I'm going to end with a bit of a mindfulness meditation practice, so we can all get an experience of a meditation. And through that, I'm going to be keeping an eye to see questions and hopefully kind of, responding to anything that comes along as I do that. So that's what you can expect around about, but I'll see how it goes time-wise. So I was saying, for those of you who may have joined a bit later, there was a suggestion, I don't know if you all saw, to bring a little raisin with you for this session. Don't worry if you haven't got a raisin, it won't matter, because you can just go along with the exercise and imagine. Many of us have got very good imagination, so it's absolutely fine to imagine what you would be experiencing. But I'm going to lead us in an exercise called the raisin exercise, which is quite a common mindfulness thing that people do on mindfulness courses, or you might have read about it if you've been interested in mindfulness, or if you've done mindfulness, you may have done this exercise before. So if you have, my suggestion is just to give it another go, and with a beginner's mind, as though you never have done it before. And actually I did do it at a NASS conference quite a few years ago, so if any of you were there, you may have done it already. So, but it's actually really good to do it again. And if you've never done it before, my suggestion is to have a go now, if you're happy to. If not, just watch along and just think it's all a bit funny or whatever. I mean, it is potentially something that seems a bit strange to be doing as we're all sitting in our houses doing this raisin exercise. So yeah, if you're thinking this is quite odd as we go along, then just notice that, you know, and give it, if you're happy to, just give it a go. So the suggestion is if you have such a thing as a raisin, or a small thing like a blueberry, strawberry, anything like that to hand, that we start by placing it in the palm of our hands. And if you're just going along in your imagination, that's fine. So imagine that you have this small object in the palm of your hands right now. And what we're going to do is imagine that this object has come from outer space and we've never seen it before in our lives. We have no idea what it is. So I'm going to, hopefully, if I can remember to, I'm going to stop referring to it as a raisin. And from now on, it's going to be an object that I've never seen, or we've never seen before. So if we could start, if you're happy to, by just feeling it. How does it feel, this object, this strange new object? Is it heavy? Is it light? How does it feel? How much space does it take up in the hand? And perhaps you can be curious about its colour as well. So as you're looking at it, maybe just moving your hands a little bit so that you can catch the light, noticing the colours of, well, what colours are there in your, they're all maybe very different, these objects, but you know, maybe a variety of different shades of colour, maybe some areas that are slightly shiny, some areas that are darker, some ridges, some furrows. So just being really curious about how it looks. And then you could even, if you wanted to, you could even hold it up to the light. Notice perhaps bits of it translucent. So there any bits of it that are different colour than another colour. And then perhaps just feeling it between your fingers. So being curious, that sensation of touch. You could even close your eyes if it was helpful for you, just to get into that sense of the feeling of touch. But some bits that are probably a bit hard, maybe some sharp corners, maybe some softer bits, maybe give it a little squeeze. So just being curious about how it feels, this object, this curious object that you're trying to get to know. And perhaps also another thing you could do is give it a smell. Just bring it under your nose, a little sniff. Is there a smell? Just being curious, you've never seen this before. Noticing the smell and noticing if there's any associations that you have with this smell. Perhaps memories are coming of this smell. You may have come across it before in your past. Any memories of or associations with that. And then finally, you might want to, well, not quite finally, but the other thing you might want to do is just put it next to your ear and just see if it makes a noise. Now, this might seem a strange thing to be doing, I understand, but just having an open mind, this object that you've never come across before, you don't know what it is, does it make a sound? Does it make a slight sound as you move it, or as you shake it, as you squish it by your ear? Just being curious. And then finally, if you're ready to, and if you want to, but there's no obligation to do this if you don't want, if it's okay for you, you could just place it in your mouth and just roll it around, maybe just letting it noticing how it feels in the mouth, on the tongue, the roof of the mouth. Noticing perhaps saliva is arriving in anticipation. And then when you're ready, just gently biting through the raisin. Noticing how that feels, maybe just going through the skin, going through the softer bit in the middle, the juice of the raisin, the taste of the raisin, noticing perhaps if you like it, if you don't like it. I've just called it a raisin, I didn't mean to. Object, you know, whether you like the taste of it or not. And then the impulse to chew and swallow. So in your own time, just doing that, enjoying, or not enjoying, so that you're, taking your time to swallow, looking after yourself as you do that, and noticing how does it feel when you chew, when you swallow. So that was what is known as the raisin exercise, and I did it fairly briefly, and I know that some of you may not have had raisins. But it would be quite interesting if anyone is able to let me know, what did you find when you did that? Was that different in any way from how you might ordinarily have eaten a raisin? Was there anything that you noticed in your particular experience? So I'll just have a little look in a moment just to see if there are any comments, any thoughts about that, if you were able to do it. And just have a little look. Yeah. So I think what most people will have noticed is that it was a very different way of eating a raisin than we often do eat raisins. Normally, we are quite prone to eating handfuls of raisins quite quickly without really necessarily being really aware that that's what we're doing. We can eat them kind of on automatic pilot. And so hopefully what you found was that was quite a different experience. You notice more things about the raisin than you might have done before, like maybe that it had some lovely shiny bits, or that it was a richer, more interesting experience of a raisin than you probably ever had before. And this is really just an example or a way of showing that when we're mindful and when we're really in the present moment, we're not lost in thought, we're not doing things on automatic pilot, then our experience of life is kind of richer, more interesting, if that makes any sense, which I hope it does. So that was just a kind of a brief maybe a brief experience, or getting this little taste of what mindfulness might be like and how it might be different from how we often live our lives, which is kind of when we're sort of lost in thought and doing things automatically, not being really, really present, using our senses. So there we were using our sense of taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight. So really being in our presence and our senses. So what is a definition of mindfulness? So the most common definition that is used of mindfulness it comes from this man called Jon Kabat-Zinn, who created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And it's the one that's most commonly used in research and when people discuss mindfulness. So it is the awareness that arises when we intentionally bring our attention into the present moment and non-judgmentally. So we bring our attention into the present moment, knowing that we're doing that, and we have this attitude of being non-judgmental about what we find, and kindness to ourselves as well. So the non-judgmental aspect really means just not being, we often have a very critical voice in our head that's wishing that we were different, or that the circumstances that we're in were different, or what we're looking at is different. But as we were doing with the raisin, really having this sense that being non-judgmental about what it is. So that just means kind of just trying to let go of often the internal, the critical kind of voices that we have in our heads as far as possible. And that's not easy to always do. But we can talk more about that. So it's this idea of coming into the present moment and doing it intentionally, and with this attitude of kindness and being non-judgmental. And why is that helpful? Why is it important? And why particularly now, given the stress of the corona, etc. So one reason is that when our minds are wandering, as you've probably noticed, there's been a lot of research that has confirmed this. Everyone spends the majority of time with their minds either ruminating about the past or anticipating the future. So many of us are just lost in thoughts. We spend a much smaller percentage of our time in the present moment than we do in the past or in the present. And this big research study was done it was actually called A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. Because what they found is that often when people's minds are in the past, we tend to be often to be ruminating about things that haven't gone well, worrying, going over things. Or when we're in the future, we're often worrying about things or anticipating things that might not go well. Or, often our minds are not actually that happy when they're wandering. So coming into the present, this research found has actually made people happier. So that's one good reason to be mindful, to come into the present. And I think the other thing is, particularly in times like now, when there is good reasons for many people to feel stress, anxiety, worry, fear, because of the situation that we're in, it's unprecedented. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know quite how long it's going to go on for. We don't know how it's going to affect, for many people, our financial situation or our relatives that we are worried about. There's many reasons why that many of us are finding it quite a difficult time, as well as having other moments of maybe some people are finding there's more space, and but there's many people are finding that there's issues around kind of dealing with anxiety, and mindfulness is really, really helpful in that, because often what happens when we're feeling really anxious is that we're getting carried away by thoughts about things that might happen in the future. So we have a fear or a slight worry or something, and then we tend to add to that through thinking about, oh, if this happens, and then that might happen, and then that might happen, and then before we know it, there's this whole mental proliferation going on, which might even go as far as catastrophizing. I know with me that can happen sometimes. So there's this sense of something happens, but when we add onto it through our thoughts and our emotions, then with these thoughts come emotions, so that we end up having increased tension, increased stress. And mindfulness is really, really good at letting us notice when that's happening, and that these things aren't happening now. They're not happening in the present moment. They're happening in our thoughts and in our anticipation of what may happen in the future, but of course it may not happen. So hopefully with mindfulness, what we can do is we can notice this mental proliferation, these worry, these fears, this escalation of thoughts and accompanying emotions, and come back into the present moment. And for most people, in the present moment, things are pretty much okay. Right in this moment, right now, in this present moment, we're breathing. We can probably feel the sense of support, like right now where we're sitting, we can feel perhaps the sense of the ground under our feet, the chair under our body. Maybe, we're able to open then to other sensations around us, like maybe we're able to notice the sound of the bird song, or to notice a beautiful tree out of the window, or if it is sunny, to feel the sun on our skin. These present moments, things that bring joy and with them some calm, actually, that often we don't notice when we're lost in thought. And being able to access these things and to take them in and to allow them to affect our experience is so, so helpful. And it builds resilience as well. So having that time when you're in the present moment, just really appreciating what is there, not what might happen, but what's here now. So if you're sitting in the garden, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, and you're looking at the beautiful spring flowers, you're taking the time to kind of really appreciate that, whatever bird song there might be, or the smile of someone that you live with, if you have anyone with you, or whatever it is that brings you pleasure, maybe listening to some lovely music, really being in that present moment. So I was listening to a really good talk last night, actually, by a meditation teacher who I really like, who was giving a talk on mindfulness and emotional resilience. And one of the things that he said that I really, really appreciated was that mindfulness is like having a brake. So like if you're in a car, when you're learning to drive, you need to know how to put on the brake as well as to accelerate. And mindfulness helps us have a kind of brake that we can put on. So these emotions of fear, anxiety and worry, the thoughts that accompany that, that's almost like accelerating off into a sort of unknown future where we get ourselves often in quite a state. So mindfulness is like actually just having a break that you can apply, knowing to come back into the present moment. So I hope this is helpful. And I'm just trying to as this have another look at any questions, if anyone's got any so far, about this definition of mindfulness. I'm just learning that I need to scroll down. So just having a little look. Yeah, lots of comments about the raisin. Find it quite hard not to eat it straight away. And all the different colours, yeah, noticing the different colours. What I hadn't noticed before was scrolling down. So I'm getting used, I'm learning how to use Facebook Live as you watch me now. Yes, self-compassion is essential living with chronic pain. That's a really, such a helpful comment there from Anne. Thank you for that, Anne. So this sense that mindfulness is really helpful when we live with chronic pain as well, as so many of us do. This sense of, you know, when we have a twinge, or when we can't sleep at night because of pain, we so often, well, speaking for myself, I can so often get into such a state where I think I'm going to be awake all night and I'm not going to be able to do anything tomorrow, and then, you know, my life's going to be a disaster. Or, you know, we have a sort of twinge of pain and we immediately go down the rabbit hole of, you know, I'm going to be in a wheelchair very soon, which whatever, you know, those kind of things. I mean, that may or may not happen, but, you know, it's that sense of being able to come back to what's actually happening right now with this sense of self-compassion and kindness, so that there's a sense of, giving yourself some kindness about what actually is happening, acknowledging what is happening, but not getting too much carried away in thoughts of what might happen. So yeah, and there's people saying that they're doing mindfulness at bedtime to relax, which is so helpful as well. And it does really help. It does really help calm down. So I think what I'd like to do now is just an exercise of mindfulness, because I feel like I've been doing quite a lot of talking. So to give you all an experience of a mindfulness meditation, and just to say really, really quickly that mindfulness and meditation are slightly different. So meditation is a formal practice that we spend time bringing our awareness usually into the breath or a sensation in the body as a way of supporting mindfulness. So mindfulness is when we're able to be in the present as much of our lives as possible. So not just when we're meditating, but in our daily lives as well. And I was going to use a quote which I've forgotten to use before, so I might just say it now. Is this sense of why is it useful? Is that if we're not mindful in the present, we tend to miss a lot of our lives. Ruminating, past, future, getting lost in automatic pilot. And there's this quote from John Lennon, which I really like, which is, life is what happens when we're busy making other plans. So yes, so being in the present moment helps us to be really present for our lives, not miss them. And I've really found that I'm much more present for those lovely moments of my life that I would have passed me by. So I'm going to lead us now in a bit of a meditation. We're going to be using the breath. And the breath is really helpful to use because it's always going to be in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past, you can't breathe in the future. And it's always with us at any time. You can, wherever you are, wherever you're starting to feel a little nervous or a little worried or feeling that fluttering of fear, we always have the breath with us. It's always a place to come back to. It can be an anchor for our awareness, an anchor for our attention. So that if we're getting lost in thoughts that are getting us to feel slightly worked up, another place to be is in the body. And we can't be in our thoughts and in the sense of the body at the same time. So it's very, very helpful and useful to come to the breath. So I'm going to lead us in a brief breathing meditation now, if you're happy to do that. So my suggestion would be, I guess many of you are sitting already, so just getting comfortable, maybe shifting a little bit your posture so that you feel comfortable. It's really helpful to have your feet flat on the floor if you're sitting in a chair, so that you can feel the sense of the ground underneath you. I always have a cushion behind my back. The idea is that we're relaxed, but also upright and a bit alert. So there's no sense of tension in the body, but the body is kind of rising upwards. So just taking a moment to just get comfortable, have this sense of being a bit upright and alert, but not strained, not putting any pressure on your body, particularly those of us who have joint pain. It's really the most important thing is to be really comfortable and really take care of yourself. And I will lead us in this meditation as though you're sitting, but some of you may choose to lie down, and that is fine. If you're more comfortable lying down, it's absolutely fine. You can do this meditation lying just as well. So just adapt. If I talk about sitting, just adapt to whatever it is lying for you. And I'm going to offer guidance. If it's not right for you, then please just tune it out and do what is right for you. So it's an offering, and really just take that or leave it as what seems right for you. So if you're happy to and you've got comfortable, you might want to allow your eyes to close. So a sense of just closing your eyes, if that's okay for you. If you would prefer to keep your eyes open, then just have a soft focus on the floor so that you're not being distracted by too much visual stimulation. Allowing your arms and your hands to rest in your lap so that they're not putting any strain on your neck or your shoulders. Just starting by having a sense of allowing the weight to travel downwards, of letting go in some way into the support beneath you. We spend so much of our time sort of holding ourselves together, sort of holding tension in our bodies. So as far as possible now, on an out breath, just letting go, allowing the shoulders to be loose, drop away from the ears. Perhaps just checking, how is the forehead? That can be an area where we hold a lot of tension. So just noticing, how is your forehead now? Can it be smooth? The area around the eyes. There's many, many, many little muscles around our eyes where we move our eyes, look around. Notice if these muscles can just be still. The eyelids gently closed if your eyes are closed. Tongue gently resting the roof of the mouth. And a sense of the weight moving down so that you're able to really feel some sense perhaps of being held and supported by the chair or the floor or the bed beneath you, whatever surface you're on. Perhaps if your feet are flat on the floor, there can be a sense of connection with the ground beneath you. Even if you're in an upstairs flat, the sense that right down beneath us, supporting us all, is the earth, the huge, stable planet of the earth. And it may be helpful for some people to have a sense of connecting with the qualities of the earth beneath us. So perhaps beneath us, this sense of stability, of calm perhaps, strength of the earth, perhaps even some sense of safety coming from the earth, this stability beneath us of the earth. And then rising up, the base of the body in touch with this sense of stability, grounding, rising up through the spine, head rising up towards the sky. And as we sit like this, becoming aware of the sense of the breath in the body. Just being curious about this act of breathing, this act of taking in air from the outside and exhaling creates movement in the body. So perhaps you become aware of the sense of breath in the nostrils as you sit here or lie here. Sense of the cool air entering the nostrils and the warm air leaving. Maybe just spending a moment to become aware of that sensation. And you might notice perhaps the sense of the breath in the chest as the lungs expand, as we breathe in and the lung air fills our lungs and the lungs expand, the chest expands. And perhaps noticing as well that not only the front of the chest, but also the rib cage expands, the back of the body, the sides of the body. And perhaps there's even sensations of the breath you can become aware of all the way down to the base of the spine even. Just being curious, perhaps not, perhaps just more the sense of the rib cage moving in the back of the body. But it can be very, very calming to become aware of the breath in the back of the body. And then, of course, there's always the breath in the belly, in the abdomen, the gentle rising and fall of the belly as you breathe. So just becoming aware of that now, if that seems right for you. Just noticing how the belly moves, the in-breath expands with the in-breath and recedes with the out-breath. And perhaps you can feel that if your hands are happening to be resting on your belly. You may have a sense of that as your hands gently move. Or you may feel your clothes gently moving over this area of your body as you breathe. So just taking a moment now to be curious of where the breath is most clear for you in your body. Where are the sensations of breath strongest for you? Perhaps the nostrils, perhaps the chest, perhaps the back of the body, or perhaps the belly. So just noticing, just taking a moment and being curious. Where is that for you? And then, if it's okay for you, just bringing your awareness to this place. So focusing your awareness on this one area of the body and being curious about the sensations of breathing here in this one place. And as far as possible, not thinking about the breath, using thoughts in your head and conceptually, but feeling the breath, the sensations of the breath from inside the body. So breathing in, knowing that you're breathing in, and breathing out, knowing that you're breathing out. And as you do this, you probably will find, or you definitely will find actually, that your mind is going to wander away from the breath. You're going to be pulled away from the sensations of breathing by thoughts. That's normal. Thoughts come and go. Everybody has thoughts. So there's no need to feel that anything has gone wrong when that happens, or that you're not good at meditating or anything like that. This is very common. So when you notice that your mind has been pulled away by the breath, from the breath by a thought, you simply notice that that's what's happened, which is a magic moment of awareness to be proud of. And then if it's okay, just make a decision to simply come back to the breath and start again. So just allowing yourself to come back to the breath if your mind has wandered, and start again on this area of the body, being interested in the sensations of breath here. The waves of the breath, the rising and falling of the body. And if you're a visual person, if images work for you, it might be helpful to imagine that as you breathe in, it's like a wave gently creeping up a lovely sandy shore. And as you breathe out, it's like the wave receding again. Or it may even help you to gently say under your breath, breathing in, breathing out as you breathe, as a way of helping your mind to stay focused on the breath. But really don't worry if your mind has wandered many, many times. Just simply notice when your mind wanders and direct it gently and kindly back to the breath, remembering this element of no judgment. Everything's okay. Just have to, well, the idea is just to notice how you are exactly as you are. No need for anything to be any different from exactly how it is. So this sense of resting awareness on the breath. And then for the last few moments of this meditation, if it's okay for you, expanding awareness to a sense of the body as a whole, as you sit here or as you lie here. So a sense of the position, the posture of your body, the places where it's in contact with the chair or the floor. Perhaps there are areas where you can feel the clothing on your skin, or perhaps cool air meeting your skin, the edges of the body, and perhaps a sense of the breath in the body as a whole. The whole body gently moving in and out as you breathe. And then allowing yourself to become aware of sounds around you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So I'm hoping that that was a interesting, at least, experience of mindfulness, meditation. If anyone's got any comments or questions or queries that you'd like to put in the box, I will have a look at those if I can now. Be interesting to know how you found that. If that was your first experience of mindfulness meditation, it would be nice to maybe really emphasize some of the misunderstandings about what mindfulness and meditation are, in that often there's a sense that people have said to me when I'm teaching, I can't meditate because my mind's always busy and I'm always thinking and I just can't sit still. And so that's a bit of a misunderstanding, actually, that, you know, it's okay to have a busy mind. The idea of mindfulness is to notice what's happening. And if we have a busy mind, we're noticing our mind is busy and we're having a lot of thoughts. So that the thoughts will come and they will take us away from the breath. And with kindness and gentleness, we notice that and simply just come back to the breath again. And another slight misunderstanding that often happens is that people feel that you have to be calm. So if I meditate, I'm going to feel relaxed and calm, and then it's going to be great. And that often is what happens. That can happen. But also the idea of it is we're being with ourselves with kindness, however we are. And we may notice, actually, we're holding a lot of fear and a lot of tension in our bodies, or a lot of pain. And that's okay too. We're not expecting any particular experience. We're just meeting what we find with kindness, with gentleness. And often what we do find is when we accept things like they are, with kindness, with gentleness, we let go of increased resistance, with increased tension, and that softens and often actually does make us feel calmer. So I hope you enjoyed that. I can see some comments here that it was relaxing, which is lovely. Anne saying she found it relaxing. I hope some of you also found that. If anyone's got, I'll just keep my eye on the questions, just in case anyone has any further questions about mindfulness or meditation. I thought I might read a poem before I finish, and I will come back to any further questions that come. I just thought I'd read a nice little poem. Us mindfulness teachers love using poetry. And this is a poem that I think speaks quite well to how things can be at the moment, what is quite helpful, and how mindfulness might help. So feel free to close your eyes if you like to listen to poetry with your eyes closed, or if you think, oh my God, I hate poetry, well, go for it. You know, it's only going to be short, I promise. It's a poem called Listen, and it's by Anon, so I don't know who wrote it. Listen. Listen to the fragile feelings, not to the clashing fury, to the quiet sounds, not to the loud clamour, to the steady heartbeat, not to the noisy confusion, to the hidden voices, not to the obvious chatter, to the deep harmonies, not to the surface discord. So these are some of the things that I can help mindfulness help us with. And if we're able to do that, it helps us find a sense of calm, resilience, and to feel resourced. So that if we have these moments of calm, if we're able to take a break, that helps us feel more resourced when we're inevitably going to have times when we are feeling that we're really suffering and we're really struggling. But it resources us a little bit more for that. And it does give us this sense of being able to have somewhere to go, come back to the present, come back to the breath, have a break, put the break on just for a moment with kindness and care to yourselves. So I think that's all I've really got time for now. I really hope that you did find it interesting. If you did, and you'd like to try a little bit more, experience a little bit more meditation, mindfulness, hear a little bit more about it, new meditation, and maybe a bit more specifically about how, as we go on about, pain and dealing with difficulty, then I'm going to be doing another session in 7 days, I think exactly this same time next Thursday. And I just want to say as well that I know that lovely Diane Aronson, who I also met in Bath, is doing a session tomorrow on emotional well-being. So I really would encourage you all to join in for that if you can, because I know that she's wonderful and I'm sure it will be really, really helpful. So yeah, I think that's everything. I just have another look just to see if there's any questions. So people saying they enjoyed the meditation. I thank you for those comments. And hope if you enjoy, it would be lovely to hopefully see you again in a week's time. And I think Sally's also said that if there are any questions, then you could direct them sally@nass.co.uk. So go well, everyone. Take care of yourselves. I know that these times are difficult, and actually, I don't know if you found like me, my pain has increased a little bit. So I think there's this sense of really taking care of ourselves, doing what we can, and mindfulness hopefully will be another box that you can think about having in your toolbox that may help. Even if it's just those little moments of just feeling your feet on the floor, the ground underneath your feet, connecting with that sense of stillness and stability of the earth, or coming into a sense of the breath that's always there and always a place to be that gets us out of the worry about the past or anticipating the future. So go well and enjoy the rest of your evenings and your afternoons. Take care.